my name is Shelby and welcome to my channel. I am Holistically Her. So in today's video, I want to go over my birth story because I had always been the girl who fantasized about having this super romantic, dreamy, unmedicated birth, and that is not what happened for me. And I just want to share my story for anyone who is currently pregnant and looking to get all the research that they can. So I remained active throughout my entire pregnancy. I remained active. I had a fantastic diet that I was very anal about because I knew I wanted this unmedicated birth. I knew what it took, what it was going to take for me. So I was preparing myself in so many different ways, right? Now, I was 37 weeks pregnant, and I remember sitting back and thinking, I feel great at 37 weeks. I'm probably going to go past 40. And I remember mentally preparing myself to argue with doctors and to be like, whatever, I'm not showing up to get induced, because my number one thing was that I don't want to be induced. I knew that if I could just get the ball rolling with labor, cool. But I knew that with induction came basically the cascade of intervention, right? Now, like I said, I was very healthy throughout my pregnancy. My labs, fantastic. My activity level, fantastic. I felt great. So when it's 3 a.m. and I'm 37 and 5 and my water breaks, I'm like, oh, it's go time. I wasn't expecting it, but let's go. I'm ready, right? Labor has started. So in my excitement, I remember running to the bathroom, and I sat on the toilet, and like there was gushing. When I got up and I looked in there, I saw my mucus plug. So I called the doctor and I'm like, hey, I'm pretty sure, literally I said, I either just peed on myself or my water broke. And they're like, well, come in, we'll check to make sure it's the amniotic fluid. And if it is, congrats, you're in labor. We'll hold you hostage. And if not, we're gonna send you home. I didn't have any contractions. I didn't have any other symptoms of labor. Well, we'll get to that later. So we're on the way to the hospital. We get there, they check my water. It is in fact amniotic fluid. And they check me. I am half a centimeter dilated. And they basically tell me that because it is confirmed that I am in labor, I cannot leave the hospital whatsoever. Now, my situation, the hospital that I was at was extremely outdated, and they were quite literally my only option. We were on Guam, so if you've ever been to Guam, you probably understand that it's a small island. A lot of the resources are scarce. I was at the best hospital I could have been at, and it was still very, very, very outdated. They did not have wireless monitoring, and that is all you need to know for right now, literally. So I get in the hospital, it is confirmed that I'm in labor, and the first thing that I say is, one, I don't want to be induced, and I ask if they have wireless monitoring. They don't. They tell me that it is a requirement, it's policy that I get an IV started. So my dream labor is already going out the window because I knew that for me, the best pain management was to keep moving. It was either get in water or keep moving. And the option to get in water was gone because I was at the hospital and not at home, and the hospital only had showers. And two, the option to move around was gone because even if I wasn't hooked up to the monitoring, which I kind of got out of that, every couple minutes I'd be like, oh, I have to use the bathroom. And they'd unhook me and take me to the bathroom. But even if I could get out of that, I was still connected to the IV. So I could really only go so far out of my room. So I'm in the hospital, half a centimeter dilated, basically chained to the bed. And like I said, every couple minutes I would tell them I needed to pee, and they would take me off. And I'd go to the bathroom, sit on the toilet for like 5 minutes, pace around the little bathroom I barricaded myself in, and then get right back in the bed. At one point, I was bouncing on a ball, and within 4 hours, because I had to fight to not be induced when I first came in, I managed to buy myself 4 hours. After that 4 hours, they came back and they were like, okay, we're going to induce you. And I was like, well, can you check me first to see if I've dilated any farther? You know, like, let's see what my body has done on its own. And they said no, they could not check me because they didn't want to risk infection. So they end up giving me an oral induction medicine, and we wait 4 more hours. It did get intense. The contractions were coming every 90 seconds. And yeah, they were intense, but manageable, right? Like, I was still hanging on. At that point, I was on the ball. I was still like trying to make my way to the bathroom back and forth. And they come in 4 hours later and they're like, hey, we're gonna start Pitocin. And I'm like, well, can we check me to see if I've dilated anymore? And they're like, no, because we don't want to introduce bacteria and give you an infection and all that. And there was a lot going on. But I ended up buying myself, if I remember correctly, another 4 hours without Pitocin. So I ended up with a total of 8 hours on the oral induction medicine. And I knew what Pitocin was. I knew the effects of it. I knew what people said about it and how it ramped up the contractions. And mind you, mine were already coming every 90 seconds. And I was already in a lot of pain with the oral induction medication. So I told them that after the 4 hours had passed, if we were going to do Pitocin, then to call in the on-call anesthesiologist and hook me up, let's get an epidural, which was already like, at the top of my priority list was 1, not to get induced, and 2, not to get an epidural. But here we are, the cascade, right? So 8 hours pass, they don't check me, they hook me up on Pitocin, and as they give me the Pitocin, I'm getting the epidural. That was what it was, right? So luckily mine took well, the anesthesiologist was great, and we got started on the Pitocin. I didn't feel a thing, but about 4 hours passed again, and miraculously they check me, and they're like, okay, you're ready to push, let's go. So I get a mirror. I'm like asking to be in all these positions that I saw on YouTube that you can get with an epidural. Like if someone could hold me and I could squat, or this and that and this and that. Everything was shut down. Everyone was like, no, you can't do that. No, 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 right? So I did end up having the 2 balls, the like balls that look like an 8. I ended up doing that for a while, and they ended up turning me side by side with the epidural just to get it even on both sides. After that, so someone comes in and they're like, you ready to push? Let's go. So I'm like, great, awesome. This is going good. I got the mirror here. I got the mirror on the ceiling. I'm laying on my back and I'm pushing. I'm doing the like types of pushing that I had learned in birthing class. And I'll be honest, they weren't working as effectively as the purple push. The purple push is actually what one of the nurses recommended that I do. And when I did that, I physically saw the progress because I was looking in both mirrors. And as I was pushing, I was seeing his head kind of like dome out, right? Now you're probably wondering, Shelby, you're pushing, you see the baby's head doming out. How did you end up with a surprise C-section? Well, so we're pushing. I'm pushing. And the baby's heart rate is going down after I push. I've seen some studies that say that's what happens during contractions, but I'm just giving a recount of my experience. The baby's heart rate starts going down as I'm pushing. So they're turning me side by side between contractions to do whatever, right? And another doctor comes in and she checks me. So interestingly enough, no one could check me when I wanted to be checked, but now just everybody's coming in the room. Anyway, so she checks me and she's like, she's not ready to push. She's at a 6. Now, when I've shared this story before, it is brought to my attention that like literally there's no proper science to it when it comes to checking dilation, because people have different size fingers, people have different gauges of perception, right? So a man was checking me at first. Men typically have bigger fingers, and a woman checked me the second time. So So whatever. When the woman checked me for the last time, she says I was never ready to push and I should have never been pushing. So basically, we're all back to the drawing board, right? Everyone leaves the room. It's just me and my husband. And I'm lying there. They have like an oxygen mask on me. And the surgeon comes up to me and she's like, hey, it's not an emergency. But before it becomes an emergency, do you want to agree to a C-section? And then just in case if you need one, we already have the documentation. We can just go ahead and do it. And I'm like, yeah, if we end up needing one, yeah, I'll sign to say that that's okay. And she's like, cool, sign right here, sign right here. And then after that signature, my husband is being dressed. I am being wheeled into the operating room. And like, I laugh, I make little slight digs, but the only reason I'm over it is simply because I won't allow my son's first day alive to be a traumatic day for me. I mean, I was already going through enough having a baby, but that's just my story of how I ended up with truly a surprise C-section. Not an emergency, unscheduled, of course, but the reason I believe that I ended up with a surprise C-section, despite being in perfect health, was just that the hospital was very behind. Simply put, they were just behind. They did not have a ton of up-to-date equipment or resources. And also I feel like the doctors just erred very close to the side of caution. And for that, I understand. No one wants to leave. No one wants a healthy mother and baby to enter the hospital and for one of them not to leave. So I understand that, but I do feel like my birth was kind of taken from me. You know, like the options were taken from me. The informed consent was not given to me of certain things. I wasn't listened to at all. And because of that, come hell or high water, my next birth will be a home VBAC. It'll either be on accident or, yeah. But that's my story. Yeah.